when we're talking about emotional abuse and difficult relationships and addiction and all that stuff that goes on around in our families when we're
Hmm.
younger, we're
Yeah,
still carrying that into
sure.
our senior years when transitions like possibly losing a spouse, having
Hmm.
to move home, having to retire maybe when you didn't want to yet or weren't ready to, and kids, maybe adult kids, living further away, all of those, boop, 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 it all
Hmm.
piles up, right? And we
Yeah,
need to be able to release that kind of energy.
yeah,
Otherwise, we just get stuck in our grind
yeah.
all day long.
Welcome to the Answers for Elders radio show.
And welcome everyone to Answers for Elders Radio Network, heard across the USA on your favorite podcast channel, on YouTube, and here on your radio station locally. We are so blessed to have wonderful content creators and experts coming on our show. And it's not very often that I get an opportunity to learn something brand new that we haven't even talked about yet. And we are talking today about anxiety. One in every five older adults suffer from anxiety. That is a overwhelming scenario for so many people, and it keeps them stuck from doing maybe what's better for them. If you're over the age of 65, one of the things that you may know is there's a lot of changes in your world. You're dealing with maybe a downsizing situation. You're dealing with maybe some instances where your mobility isn't what it used to be. Maybe you're dealing with some other types of scenarios that causes you to feel like, wow, I didn't even realize that I am suffering from anxiety. And by the way, it is one of the most under diagnosed conditions from in seniors. And so we are just blessed to have Bonnie Brindle here, who is a published author and a heart for healing. And she is an amazing anxiety coach, someone that helps you naturally as a psychotherapist and author and educator and international speaker. And Bonnie today, she is here with us. She's helped thousands of people find the calm in the chaos in their lives. And so, Bonnie, I am so blessed to have you on the show today. Welcome to Answers for Elders.
Thank you for that very warm welcome, Suzanne. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy you're here because oftentimes we don't even realize, especially those of us that are maybe boomers, we're starting to lose our mobility. Maybe we're a spousal caregiver, that we're taking care of someone else. And, that's a whole story in itself. But there's so many seniors today that are suffering from anxiety, and it keeps, us stuck from the future of maybe a better quality of life, different things like that. But before we start, I want to talk to you a little bit about your background and how you got into all this.
Okay, well, I call myself the Anxiety Avenger. And
I
after,
love that, by the way.
thank you. After many years in the education field, where I did work with students and parents and educators around anxiety and moving through their days, I retired from there. I'm 63 and wrote my book, which includes a memoir of how I discovered the roots of my own debilitating anxiety. When I was in my teens and 20s, I dealt with debilitating panic disorder and agoraphobia. And I have since, over these decades, figured out how to let a lot of that go because anxiety is just trapped energy,
Mm-hmm.
to let that go safely and without medication. So I
Yeah.
completely transformed my own life, and that's what I want to share with others so they can let go of what's holding them back.
Yeah. And it's so valuable to be able to have tools. And without having feeling like you have to take a pill and you have to, and a lot of us boomers, we grew up with parents. Matter of fact, I shared with you a story. My mom, she'd reach for a Valium in her in her medicine cabinet,
Hmm.
if she had anxiety. And the thing is she wasn't taught the proper tools to calm herself. And I think one of the things that's really powerful about the boomers is we're looking for alternative solutions rather than going to the medicine cabinet. I think for the most part we're different generation than our parents were, but we don't necessarily have the proper tools to do that. And obviously, there's a lot of transitions, like we talked about, as I talked about in the opening of today's show. So tell me a little bit about how transitions affect anxiety.
Oh my goodness. No matter what age we're at, transitions can affect our anxiety. And sometimes, with boomers especially, we tend to have grown up with a suck it up and move on attitude and be seen and not be heard kind of thing. And
Especially women.
especially women. And we have not heard how to help ourselves move
Mhm.
out of that or even to identify anxiety. When someone in your world is angry a lot or withdrawn
Yeah.
or frustrated super easily, right? That that's covering up a fear, a loss, a concern
Yeah.
that would be called anxiety. But a lot of people look at that word and think, oh, that's weakness. That's often thought of as a female thing. Men don't get anxious. Oh my goodness, that's not true. But it comes out in all those other emotional
Mhm.
expressions that we have. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and certainly, there's we women, and I'm talking about women as a whole, in our adult life, we're always the ones that are the fixers. We're the ones that are the nurturers, the carers. And there's no surprising that family caregivers are 75% women. It's because we just are wired in that way. We're raised that way to not, and especially in the boomer generation, I remember distinctly my mom said, if I was feeling anxiety about something as a child, put a smile on your face. It's okay. Everything's fine. And that's the kind of thing I think that a lot of us were raised that way. And wouldn't you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. Just smile and keep going. And then for
Hmm.
some of us, I didn't have a mom who was on using Valium or Xanax, and frankly, she probably would have been happier if she did. But when we're talking about emotional abuse and difficult relationships and addiction and all that stuff that goes on around in our families when we're
Hmm.
younger, we're
Yeah,
still carrying that into
sure.
our senior years when transitions like possibly losing a spouse, having
Hmm.
to move home, having to retire maybe when you didn't want to yet or weren't ready to, and kids, maybe adult kids, living further away, all of those, boop, 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 it all
Hmm.
piles up, right? And we
Yeah.
need to be able to release that kind of energy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we just get stuck in our
Yeah.
grind all day long.
And I think too, what you're saying is really important because self-care.
Yeah.
Self-care, a lot of us were raised if you do anything for yourself, you're selfish. You're
Yep.
not selfish. And the thing is that if you don't take care of yourself, you don't have the vessel, you're not a proper vessel to care for other people. It is so valuable and important that those that are on the front line, maybe you're taking care of a spouse, maybe you're in the sandwich generation where you have adult children still living with you. This is a real thing that's happening in this country. And obviously, Bonnie, this is something I think more than anything that needs to be driven home to our generation. How many women out there specifically don't take care of themselves?
For sure. Women are busy taking care of everybody else, but also men are busy denying that they have these
Yeah.
emotional issues.
Yeah, that
So
too.
they're stuffing
Absolutely.
it down and it's either on themselves or they're throwing it out on other people. And the women, often women are, running around trying to pick up the pieces. And if we can communicate better with each other
Hmm.
and learn how to release that kind of energy that we're carrying from eons back,
Yeah.
it can really
So,
help each
Bonnie, you have amazing strategies that we're going to share this hour about how to deal with anxiety, the tools that we can use to do that. In the meantime, you have a lot of information for our listeners. What can we learn from you? What can we get?
Well, in your show notes, you'll see the download that I put together for 5 top tips that I use every single morning to start
Hmm.
my day. Yep. And the book that I wrote is called Cracking the Crazymakers Code. And it has a memoir of how I discovered my anxiety disorder. And also at the end of each chapter has reflections and action steps that you can take through a printed journal to start working your own path out of maybe some of the places that you're stuck.
Perfect.
So
And Bonnie, what is your website?
my website is bonniebrindle.com. Super easy. You can get my book there. I can send it directly to you, personalized. And if you want to be on a list that we'll talk about later for any of the things we talk about, just jump on my contact page and, hey, put me on your list for your course,
Fabulous.
source book, etc.
And we'll be right back right after this.
Did you know that you can discover hundreds of podcasts in our library on senior care? So visit our website and discover our decision guides that will help you also navigate decision making. Find us at answersforelders.com.